So Jim, tell us what Dr. B's opinion was on breathing problems.
Dr. B wrote a book, The ABC of Asthma, Allergies, and Lupus. It covers more things than just the breathing problems, but asthma. Matter of fact, in his book, there's testimonials from medical doctors that had asthma. And he heard them wheezing and says, drink some water, put salt on your tongue. Once again, the body has to have water to process the food. Your blood's mainly water, your brain's mainly water. And when the body borrows water from the lungs to hydrolyze the food, in other words, the body can't use food without water, so if it takes the water from the lungs, then you have asthma, emphysema, cystic fibrosis, or what we call COPD. If you blow on glass, you see the moisture of your sunglasses. You lose 2 quarts of water every day from exhaling. So that little air sac, alveoli, you have to have water to change the surface tension, or you can't exhale. An asthmatic can breathe in, but they can't exhale. That's why asthmatics do better around the ocean, because they got moisture and they got salt. So the salt is critical for the body retaining the water, and the salt in the lungs, it helps maintain this surface tension that's got to be done. It's very complicated. I'm not even sure I understand it myself, but I can tell you that they have salt inhalers for people that you can buy. If you go online and look, they have, it looks like an inhaler, but it's salt. And people there's rooms, you tell me one in Texas, and in Chicago, you can go into these salt rooms and you can have a breathing problem, go in there, and you breathe just fine because the whole room is lined with salt in there. So a person that has asthma, you drink some water, put salt on your tongue. Either the water or the salt should make a difference. If it doesn't, then you need a little bit of sugar. And if it still doesn't correct the problem, well, then there's so much damage that's done, or there's another online problem, asbestos or something else, that's a chemical that somebody's breathed and it did damage. And it's going to take a while for the cells to repair themselves. That's another thing. Every 120 days, all your cells regenerate. So if you can hang in there for 120 days and give the body what it needs, more than likely you'll see it turn around. That's what I've seen. Every week, a little bit of difference, if that makes sense.
For someone starting out the protocol, if they are an asthmatic, is there anything they should do particularly different than the normal routine in the book?
Well, Dr. B says if you are an asthmatic or have a breathing problem, you've got to limit your potassium. In other words, you don't do a lot of orange juice, because orange juice, as he says, I'm not sure I agree with the word he says, it'll precipitate an asthma attack. So 1 glass of orange juice is okay, but he says if you have 2, 1 glass would be 8 ounces. So 8 ounces of orange juice, he says you're okay, but you have to have salt for the potassium. Because once again, he explains that potassium doesn't go into a cell and stay there without salt. It's absolutely critical. That's why people in the South put salt on their fruit, because it's loaded with potassium. And if you don't have that balance, then you're going to have problems.
Also cover for us, for breathing problems, the other end of the extreme, someone who's on COPD. I know someone right now who's at home on hospice and is given a month to live because he's such an advanced state. So for someone in that state starting the process, what do you recommend they do?
They're in a hospice. They got to pretty much do what they tell them to do, because you can't be giving them salt and water and sugar. They'll throw you out. But when you did mention that, I've taken people that are on oxygen and they have the little thing on their finger, they can monitor their oxygen level. When they drink a little water and put salt on their tongue, they can see the oxygen level go right up. It's really interesting to see it. You can do it yourself if you've got the little thing on your finger to see your oxygen level. You drink some water, put salt on your tongue, and you'll actually see the oxygen level come up. Or you drink water and put sugar on there. And that's because those red blood cells that hang on where the oxygen exchange and everything is, it requires the salt to be able to do this, and it requires the sugar. So that's why they give sugar water. There's one of them hanging up here it's dextrose and saline. It's a combination. So they do all kinds of combinations in the hospital because they know you got to have sugar and they know you got to have salt.
But in the 15 years since you've been working with Dr. B, have you ever come across someone who was in an advanced stage with COPD and they were able to turn themselves around?
Yes, I can think of about 5 or 6 people. They actually came off of their COPD was gone, chronic obstruction pulmonary disease. Came off of their oxygen and went around, and matter of fact, one of them was a singer, and the other one was a truck driver. There's several other ones, they were just old people. Some of those people were smoking, and that's another chapter covered in our book, A Simple Way to Quit Smoking. It's unbelievable. People are on oxygen and they can't breathe. They're just barely breathing. Take the oxygen off and have a lung rocket. They take a couple of smokes and they're coughing and choking and go back on oxygen, and it's an ongoing thing. But they have to have that cigarette. And as we tell them in there, it's nothing but an addiction to their own body's release of opiates, endorphins. So if you take sugar, water, and salt, you can't smoke a cigarette, which we talk about in here. One lady had congestive heart failure. The other one is a truck driver. And the other day I took a Marine that had to have his smoke, and he's got a 6-month-old daughter, and his wife doesn't want him smoking, and he had to have his smoke. And I said, have some sugar, water, and salt, and he had it. And he's an MP out of Pendleton. Big guy, like Incredible Hulk. So he did 4 glasses of sugar, water, and salt. He says, I don't even have an urge. And I said, well, please take one and see if you can smoke it. He took 2 drags and he had to sit down because he became lightheaded and dizzy. Because when you take the sugar, water, and salt, or orange juice and salt, the body won't release endorphins, so the lungs shut down, which means you're not going to smoke.
Yeah, and I've seen that happen as well. It's an amazing thing to
If you did it, that's right.
witness someone doing it. So thank you, Jim, for covering breathing problems.